On January 7, 2025, during a press conference at his Mar-a-Lago resort, Donald Trump declared his plan to implement substantial tariffs on goods from both Mexico and Canada. He justified these proposed measures by attributing blame to Mexico for allowing millions of people to enter the United States and accused the country of failing to curb illegal immigration and drug trafficking. In a bold and characteristic statement, Trump announced that the Gulf of Mexico would henceforth be renamed the Gulf of America, calling the change both beautiful and appropriate for what he claimed was a rebranded and more secure maritime boundary. He further suggested that the long-standing trade agreement between the U.S. and Mexico required a complete overhaul, arguing that Mexico should bear the economic consequences of its insufficient border security. According to Trump, Mexico benefits from approximately $200 billion in subsidies annually, insinuating that the country's policies not only facilitate illegal immigration, but also contribute to America's trade deficit. He painted a grim picture of Mexico as a nation under the control of cartels, and pledged that if these tariffs failed to produce the desired results, he might consider additional economic or even geopolitical measures against the country. Trump's statements sparked immediate responses from across the border. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum swiftly rebuked his claims, dismissing them as defamatory and reaffirming Mexico's status as a sovereign nation fully capable of managing its own affairs. In a recent statement, she emphasized that while Mexico has taken serious measures to strengthen border security and address migration challenges, it is both unfair and inaccurate to place the blame solely on the Mexican government or its citizens. Social media in Mexico erupted with both outrage and satire, with many mocking Trump's decision to rename the Gulf and his remarks about potentially integrating Canada as the 51st state. President Sheinbaum took a firm stance against Trump's latest remarks, making it clear that she would not tolerate any misrepresentation of her country. Demonstrating strong leadership, she not only refuted Trump's allegations, but also warned that American corporations contributing to Mexico's internal challenges would face severe repercussions. Sheinbaum vowed to take legal action against any U.S. companies found to be complicit in illegal activities, reinforcing her commitment to upholding Mexico's sovereignty. In her own words, she declared, "What we will never accept is interference or interventionism, and we will always defend our sovereignty." Her response provided a stark contrast to Trump's rhetoric, which many critics perceived as divisive and lacking in substance. While Trump aimed to control the narrative, Sheinbaum consistently countered his claims, positioning herself as a formidable leader. With a high approval rating of 80%, she has established a leadership standard that Trump has struggled to match. One of Sheinbaum's central arguments is that the United States plays a significant role in fueling crime in Mexico, particularly through the trafficking of firearms. She pointed out that an estimated 74% of weapons used by Mexican criminal organizations originate from the U.S., a statistic not only asserted by Mexico, but also recognized by the U.S. Department of Justice. Sheinbaum argued that firearms often reach the hands of Mexican cartels through loopholes such as straw purchases and weak regulations at gun shows, which in turn contribute significantly to the escalating violence in her country. In response to this growing issue, Mexico has taken an unprecedented legal step by filing an international lawsuit against multiple U.S. gun manufacturers and distributors. The lawsuit holds these companies responsible for the violence enabled by their products, alleging that American firearm manufacturers knowingly facilitate the illegal trafficking of high-powered weapons. However, this legal action is not merely about assigning blame, it is also a strategic move on Mexico's part. Sheinbaum has warned that if the U.S. were to officially designate Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, then American gun companies selling weapons to these groups could, by extension, be considered accomplices. Addressing the matter in a recent press conference, she stated, "If they were to decree that organized crime groups are terrorists, well, we would have to expand our lawsuit in the United States. Maybe, I don't know. The lawyers are looking into it, but the gun manufacturers could be accomplices." This assertion carries significant weight, as it redirects attention from blaming Mexico for its security issues to scrutinizing the role that U.S. policies and commercial practices play in the proliferation of dangerous weapons. Critics of the American gun industry argue that merely following existing laws should not absolve companies of accountability when those laws enable a system in which military-style weapons easily fall into the hands of criminal organizations. The implications of Sheinbaum's stance are far-reaching. By challenging the prevailing narrative that Mexican cartels are solely responsible for the violence, She is reaffirming Mexico's sovereignty and its right to protect its citizens from the devastating consequences of firearms trafficking. Furthermore, her position highlights a broader call for bilateral cooperation, urging the United States not only to strengthen its regulatory frameworks and enforcement measures, but also to acknowledge its role in a chain of events that has resulted in tens of thousands of homicides across Mexico. As the legal battle unfolds, with the lawsuit seeking damages estimated at approximately $10 billion, the case is poised to have significant repercussions. It compels a reevaluation of the responsibility borne by U.S. gun manufacturers and questions the efficacy of current American laws in preventing legally sold firearms from being diverted into illegal markets. Against a backdrop of heightened tensions regarding border security and trade, Sheinbaum's legal challenge serves as a bold declaration that Mexico will not tolerate external interference in its internal affairs or compromises to the safety of its people. Shifting focus to another contentious dispute between the United States and Mexico, President Trump has proposed renaming the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. While he has yet to formalize this idea into an official policy, the suggestion has surprisingly gained traction among certain groups. In fact, some instances have emerged where Google has displayed both names, depending on the region, adding fuel to the already growing controversy. This development has sparked outrage in Mexico, with President Claudia Sheinbaum condemning what she perceives as a blatant distortion of historical and geographical facts. At a recent press conference, she directly criticized Google for listing Gulf of America in select locations, arguing that it undermines Mexico's rightful claim over its continental shelf. She firmly stated, "Not even President Trump is proposing that the entire Gulf of Mexico be renamed the Gulf of America, only its continental shelf. If they continue insisting, we are also considering legal action because they are even naming over Mexican territory, which includes our continental shelf." Her statement underscores that this dispute is not merely about a name, it is about national pride, historical accuracy, and the sovereignty of Mexican territory. Sheinbaum's firm stance serves as a reminder that manipulating geographical names is not a trivial matter. Rather, it has the potential to shape perceptions and influence policy discussions on both sides of the border. For Mexico, the Gulf of Mexico represents more than just a body of water. It is an integral part of the nation's identity and economic framework. Any attempt to alter its designation could be interpreted as an effort to rewrite history and challenge Mexico's territorial integrity. Sheinbaum has made it clear that Mexico will not stand idly by while such misrepresentations persist. This controversy also serves as a reflection of the broader tensions between the U.S. and Mexico, which extend beyond economic and immigration-related disputes. It is a stark reminder that issues at the border are deeply tied to historical narratives and the way each nation perceives itself and its relationship with the other. These ongoing disputes highlight the complexities of diplomacy and national identity in an era of shifting geopolitical dynamics. Additionally, there has been a sharp rebuttal from President Claudia Sheinbaum regarding President Trump's accusations that Mexican cartels are solely responsible for the drug trade. Rather than accepting this claim, she has turned the argument around, emphasizing the crucial role that the United States itself plays in fueling the crisis. Sheinbaum has pointed out that the fentanyl and narcotics problem is not simply a consequence of Mexican criminal organizations. Rather, it is driven by American consumers and distributors who create an immense demand for these substances. She argues that if the United States is genuinely committed to combating drug trafficking, it must also hold itself accountable for its own citizens who actively participate in these illicit operations. In a pointed statement, she directly challenged the prevailing narrative, asking, "Who distributes fentanyl in American cities? It is the Americans who are driving this market, so do not place the blame solely on us." To substantiate her argument, she referenced a report indicating that during her predecessor's administration, arrests of U.S. nationals for organized crime offenses in Mexico surged by over 450%. This sharp increase, she asserts, is undeniable proof that American citizens are directly involved in illegal drug operations, significantly contributing to the crisis. President Sheinbaum has called on Washington to shift its focus and adopt a more holistic approach to tackling the drug epidemic. Instead of solely cracking down on Mexican cartels, she urges the United States to enforce its own laws more strictly, arguing that the root of the problem extends beyond foreign criminal organizations to include domestic policies and systemic issues that allow illegal activities to thrive. In her view, a more balanced and effective strategy must acknowledge this reality, as it would lead to a more comprehensive approach to addressing the drug trade that devastates communities on both sides of the border. In a recent press briefing, Scheinbaum made it clear that if the U.S. government chooses to target Mexico over its internal affairs, such as by officially designating Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, then Mexico will have every right to retaliate through legal means. She directly pointed to the deeper issue at hand: the role of American gun manufacturers in supplying weapons to criminal groups. A large portion of these firearms come from U.S. gun manufacturers, she stated. So why aren't we holding them accountable? Why not take legal action against Smith & Wesson, Beretta, and Colt Manufacturing? If they come after us, we can play that game too. By naming the companies she holds responsible, Scheinbaum sent a clear message: Mexico will not simply absorb criticism, it will take legal action where necessary. This is not just rhetoric. Her stance represents a shift in how Mexico asserts its sovereignty and protects its citizens. By focusing attention on U.S. arms manufacturers, she dismantles the argument that places all blame on Mexico's criminal elements, instead pushing for a broader discussion on accountability. She asserts that if the U.S. is willing to apply legal and economic pressure on Mexico, then Mexico must also explore every available legal avenue to address what it perceives as a systemic issue rooted in the unregulated flow of American weapons into its territory. This is more than a legal confrontation. It is a battle over national identity and responsibility. It reflects a growing frustration in Mexico, where stringent gun laws contrast starkly with the reality on the ground. Vast numbers of lethal American-made firearms continue to flow into criminal organizations. Scheinbaum's challenge is a call to reframe the conversation on arms trafficking, urging the U.S. to examine its own role in fostering cross-border violence. Her response is part of a broader international trend of resistance to Trump's economic threats. She further highlights that if Trump were to impose tariffs on Mexico, the economic consequences would extend far beyond Mexican businesses. They would also significantly impact American industries. Guess what? Your auto manufacturers are in Mexico, she pointed out. If you want to talk about major American auto companies, their factories are right here in Tijuana and across the country. So if you impose tariffs on us, you're essentially hurting your own economy. She also reminded Trump that the United States-Mexico-Canada Agreement, USMCA, which replaced NAFTA, was negotiated under his own administration. Now that he is claiming the deal is unfair, she argues, he is contradicting himself. Similar economic resistance is emerging in Canada, where citizens are considering boycotting American goods and travel in response to Trump's policies. Scheinbaum's approach aligns with a growing international pushback. Over the past several years, Mexico has solidified its position as the U.S.'s largest trading partner in goods, with industries such as automotive, energy, electronics, and machinery serving as key pillars of economic interdependence. Recent data from the U.S. Census Bureau indicates that in 2024, the United States exported approximately $334 billion worth of goods to Mexico, while importing around $406 billion, leading to a significant trade deficit of roughly $72 billion. This imbalance has more than doubled since 2018, when the deficit stood at $78 billion. By 2024, it had reached record levels, with 2023 estimates showing a deficit of around $152.5 billion. Adding to this dynamic, FreightWaves reported that trade between the U.S. and Mexico reached an unprecedented $415 billion in the first half of 2024, highlighting the rapid expansion of economic ties. Looking at a monthly snapshot, in December 2024 alone, U.S. exports to Mexico amounted to approximately $24.6 billion, while imports totaled about $39.2 billion, resulting in a monthly trade deficit of roughly $14.6 billion. These figures underscore the persistent and growing trade imbalance between the two nations. Examining the product categories involved, key Mexican exports to the U.S. include motor vehicle parts and accessories, which in 2023 reached an estimated $36 billion. Other major sectors include electronics, machinery, and agricultural products, all of which play critical roles in the trade relationship. On the American side, petroleum oils and bituminous minerals rank as top exports, valued at approximately $28.6 billion in 2023. Additionally, the United States supplies Mexico with a wide range of industrial goods, from automotive components to capital equipment, which support Mexico's booming manufacturing sector. The evolution of U.S.-Mexico trade can be traced back to the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, of 1994, later succeeded by the USMCA. These agreements have fueled consistent trade growth over the decades, with an increasing portion of U.S. imports coming from Mexico as American companies shift production southward to take advantage of lower costs. This trend has contributed to the widening goods deficit, even as the U.S. enjoys a surplus in service trade with Mexico. When compared to other major trading partners, the deficit with Mexico ranks as the second largest after China, where the U.S. trade shortfall reached approximately $295 billion in 2024. This reflects the deep manufacturing and supply chain integration between the U.S. and Mexico, reinforcing the complexities of their economic relationship. Now let's take a closer look at the long and intricate history of U.S.-Mexico relations, a story that spans over 2 centuries and continues to shape both nations. In 1810, amid a wave of independence movements sweeping across Latin America, Mexican revolutionaries ignited a struggle to break free from Spanish rule. By 1821, Mexico had secured its independence through the Treaty of Córdoba, ushering in a new era of sovereignty. However, while Mexico was in the process of defining itself as a nation, the United States was aggressively expanding its borders. The Adams-Onis Treaty of 1819, which roughly delineated the boundary between U.S. and Spanish territories, hinted at future territorial disputes as the borders remained fluid and contested. Fast forward a few decades, and tensions escalated with the Texas Revolution. Anglo-American settlers had flooded into Texas, which was then a part of Mexico, leading to increasing friction between the two sides. In 1836, following a bloody conflict that culminated in the capture of Mexican President Santa Anna, Texas declared its independence. In 1845, the U.S. formally annexed Texas, a move that further inflamed hostilities. These events set the stage for the Mexican-American War, a conflict that erupted in 1846 and lasted until 1848. The war concluded with the signing of the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, through which Mexico surrendered more than half of its territory, including present-day California, Arizona, New Mexico, and portions of several other states. This significant territorial loss, followed by the Gadsden Purchase in 1853, reshaped the North American map and left an enduring impact on Mexico's national consciousness. The repercussions of these events still resonate in historical narratives and political discourse between the two nations. As the years passed, both countries evolved, though the memories of conflict persisted. During the late 19th and early 20th centuries, economic ties between the U.S. and Mexico deepened. The rapid industrialization of the United States created labor shortages, prompting American railroad companies to recruit Mexican workers, further intertwining the economies and cultures of the two nations. However, these growing ties were not without complications. The Mexican Revolution of the 1910s not only triggered a massive wave of migration northward, but also underscored deep-rooted social and political tensions. U.S. military interventions, such as the 1916 expedition to capture Pancho Villa, further complicated relations, creating a lasting legacy of both cooperation and mistrust. Following World War II, the relationship between the two nations entered a new phase. The Bracero program, initiated in 1942, brought millions of temporary Mexican laborers to work in American agriculture and railroads, reinforcing economic interdependence. As trade between the countries grew, so did diplomatic challenges. Issues such as border security, immigration policies, and drug trafficking remained persistent concerns, forcing both nations to continually navigate complex negotiations. The signing of the NAFTA in 1994 symbolized a new era of economic integration, linking the U.S., Mexico, and Canada in an extensive trading network. NAFTA not only facilitated trade expansion, but also deepened cultural and social connections between the countries. However, it also sparked heated debates over job losses, economic disparities, and the long-term effects of free market policies. In recent years, the U.S.-Mexico relationship has experienced a period of transformation and renewed tensions. Under the leadership of President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, and now his successor, Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico has taken steps to reaffirm its sovereignty and challenge some of the free market principles promoted under NAFTA. On the U.S. side, contentious policies on immigration and border security, particularly during Donald Trump's presidency, have strained relations. Disputes over tariffs, border wall funding, and drug enforcement strategies have added new complexities to an already intricate dynamic. Despite these challenges, the deep economic and cultural ties between the two nations endure. Today, Mexico remains one of the United States' most significant trading partners, a relationship shaped by centuries of conflict, negotiation, and cooperation. That wraps up today's video. Thank you for joining us. We truly appreciate your support. If you found this discussion insightful or thought-provoking, we encourage you to like the video and subscribe to stay connected with our community. Your engagement means a great deal to us. You can also check out another video from our channel, now appearing on your screen.